As I had indicated earlier, the investigations that are being conducted by EACC, a majority of them are dealing with unsupported expenditure or payments that have been made without supporting documents, Chair.
So in that case, then my question would have been, Chair, whether you then guide that since this matter is under investigation, the crimes appearing before us, they have washed their hands, and I'm sure this is the only evidence that they have. So we would only need to pronounce ourselves. I agree with you. What the good executive from Murang'a would have said. This is the only thing that we have. The rest, we allow the road to take its natural course because there are people who are, culpable. Instead of maybe spending too much time, Honorable Chair, on a matter that already has gone to, the next level, we would want to, just leave it at that. Reprimand the executive for not giving us a very good response, and then we are able to address and deal with the other matters.
Chair, maybe I can. There is a lot of semantics and everything. Governor, are you trying to fix the former governor of Murang'a, His Excellency Governor Mwangi Wairia?
Governor?
By doing nothing about anything. Are you trying to fix him?
Thank you, Chair. We are merely complying with the directions of this committee and also wanting to assist the Office of the Auditor General. Reason being, when we came here, we were directed to supply this set of documents. For the first time, they were never supplied to the auditor, they were never supplied to the Senate, and we did as commanded by this honorable committee. We supplied 900 documents. 57% was able to be confirmed. We can't vote for the rest. And as correctly advised by Senator Nyandaro, Senator Medu, that is now going forward, an issue that this committee can make recommendations, because that is very competent as per what we are directed by the committee. As to what my brother, Senator from Kisii, has said.
Of order, Chair. The governor is trying to be clever and smart. I have just asked a direct question. Are you trying to fix your predecessor? Let me not mention them so that you are comfortable.
No, we are not. Thank you, Chair, for that question. We are not trying to fix anyone. Yes. We are just trying to comply with the orders of
not anyone, your predecessor.
No, we are not fixing anyone.
No, not anyone, him.
We are not fixing my predecessor.
Okay, thank you.
Or anyone.
But Governor, if you think through it,
yeah,
that the chief officer and the director of accounting who prepare these financial statements are the same guys who are in your team. So what is that telling us? Because if you had a completely different set of people, like the professor there, then you would say that maybe the guys who were there could have concealed records of expenditure. But you have the same people who prepared the financial statements, who approved payments. How can you then not possibly support this expenditure and continue to retain those persons in the key positions? Let us help us understand that.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we have made changes in that office. We have made a lot of changes. Number one, we have the director who is currently serving, who is on me on my right hand, was promoted just the other day. Secondly, Chair, we also want to indicate one of the problems Murang'a was having those years was lack of an internal audit committee. We now have
point of order, Chair, on relevance. The witness has refused to answer your question. He is giving a different version of the question you didn't ask. Is it in order? Can you direct the witness to answer the question? Because your question was simple. These people are the ones who generated adverse opinion. And that is why from the onset I asked, what have you done? I would have expected you, Governor, to say you have surcharged them or you have taken administrative action, but the best you have done is to award them by giving them positions which will still affect the outcome of any other audit, even during your tenure.
Maybe if you just allow me to do a write on whatever question
Senator,
we are dealing with your permission, I would also want to know whether the gentlemen who prepared this or who dealt with this particular audit, are they also under investigation, or is it just the governor who has been singled out?
Which governor?
Oh yeah,
This specific, which governor?
Honorable Chair, we are getting directions from many places, but the governor that I meant in this case was former Governor
Okay.
Mwangi wa Iria.
I think that question should be to EACC because they're the investigators.
Just so that we get to understand whether they are also under investigation.
And Patricia, you may respond to the extent that we do not prejudice the ongoing investigations.
It's just a question of yes or no whether they are under investigation. If they are under investigation, we just leave that matter so that the law will take its natural course.
Chair, if the senator could come again on which specific issues he's asking about, specifically the former governor.
No, beyond the former governor, the other officers who prepared or who are in this particular, who dealt with this particular audit or these particular financial statements that we are dealing with, are they also under investigation? That is the director who is still there, and I think Kimuyu and Kahora, are they also under investigation? Or maybe, Governor, if you are in the know, you could help us.
Yeah, to the best of our knowledge, everyone who was involved that time is under investigation, to the best of our knowledge, but subject to...
So in that case then, Chair, if they are under investigation, why don't we just let the matter?
We cannot take the governor's response. It's the investigator who should advise us.
Yeah, we need to be careful. You know, governor also can form an committee to investigate his own officers. So we need to know which one does he refer to. His own investigation as through the county secretary, disciplinary committee, or EACC.
And Senator Methu, yours is not an idle question, because it would give rise to the other question that if the chief officer, finance, director of accounting are under investigation, should they continue managing financial records within the entity?
I mean, that was the next question that I was to go to, and I don't know why, Honorable Chair, you and the Vice Chair, who have spent more time with the Governor Kang'ata, are treating him with a lot of suspicion. I mean, but I withdrew, I actually withdrew and apologize. I want to know
Senator Methu, for your information, there's a reggae song that Senator Kang'ata and I know that says, "Who feels it knows it."
All right,
let's proceed.
Those of you who feel it, you know it. I just want to know from then the investigator whether Mr. Kamuyu and Mr. Kahora or Kahoro are under investigation. Just a confirmation as to what the governor has said.
During investigation processes, I think the entire chain that is involved in payment are considered part of the investigation process. But in order to effectively respond on the names that are specifically mentioned, maybe I can respond after some time.
I think that's fair.
Then my second question then would be to you, Governor. If to the best of your knowledge, because you said to the best of your knowledge, you know that they are under investigation, why do you still think that they are very, very important and they have to still remain within your administration? And I mean, Murang'a is known to have the best brains around. Why would you still feel that they are the people that must continue pushing the agenda of Murang'a ahead?
Senator Methu, that is a question I've asked repeatedly. You have just asked it with compassion. And the governor has not responded so far. Maybe he might respond to your compassionate question.
Thank you, Chair. If we will definitely consider taking remedial actions pursuant to the direction of this honorable committee. Our view was we wanted they help us to answer and retrieve these documents. We held the view that to the extent at least 57% of the documents were retrieved. I think that is progress, you see. So that was our thinking, that at times it helps a person with institutional memory to help you retrieve whatever documents is required. But we want to assure that we are always cooperating with the Office of the Auditor General. We believe this audit, they do a very important job. We provide with them whatever documents they want. We also adhere to the directions of this honorable committee. And that's why we wrote a letter to the Office of the Director General in Nyeri. We provided 900 documents notwithstanding. That was not our error, it was somebody else's error who is under investigation. But despite that, we are able to retrieve all those documents.
Point of order, Chair. I think the governor is very, very economical with the truth. You would not say that it was somebody's error, somebody else's error, or the person seated right to your right is one of those that are under investigation. It's only one person who has left, the governor. But the other team, the whole team are still with you. But I want them to get, I think Governor Kang'ata is a poet. He will answer 1% of the question and then bring in other issues. I want the first part of your response.
Are you going to withdraw the aspersions you are casting on the part of the chair and the vice chair initially?
Well, not yet. Governor Kang'ata is our neighbor, so we are not yet there. I wanted to then get it from the governor. Do you then hold the position that you kept them so that they help you with the provision of these documents? Soon after they have provided the documents, as Professor has mentioned, and there are no more other documents that they can provide, then you relieve them of their duties. Is that the position that you choose to take?
Thank you, Chair. We look into it based on the evidence that will be before us. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Methu?
Chair, on a point of as a procedure.
Now, I think let's Senator Charaki.
The law says that when the auditor has presented, the parliament shall consider. From the response of the governor, are we really making any progress? Because it looks like we are gerrymandering and going into another conundrum that does not in any way give us a way out. Because if we are in question one, we have spent more than 1 hour trying to get the information from governor, which he should have done it within 2 minutes by saying, if he could not give supporting documents to answer this question, he should have just indicated and also indicated that some of this matter are under investigation so that we move to another audit query. Chair.
The conclusion that we must arrive at is that 600 million Kenya shillings was stolen in Murang'a, because you have given the governor for Murang'a 3 chances, 3 opportunities to justify the unsupported expenditure. The first opportunity, supporting documentations were not provided to the Auditor General. The second opportunity, we had the same scenario and we deferred the meeting. This is a third opportunity, and the governor says that what he can support still leaves a gap of 600 million Kenya shillings. If that is a position of the governor, the position is taken under oath, we have no other alternative but to ask the EACC to carry out an investigation in Murang'a County. The EACC has told us of the active matters that are before them. Some of them relate to legal fees of 10 million, others per diems, others payments of 790,000, but nothing close to the 600 million that is in focus right now. We must therefore ask the EACC to move in to carry out a proper, thorough, broad investigation. We would expect that the officers who were custodians of records during that period, who have still been retained by Governor Kang'ata, they are either accomplices stealing together, or the governor has abdicated his duty to ensure that public resources are managed in a way that is consistent with the Constitution. And the committee and the Senate cannot fire a county official. That is the responsibility of the county assembly. That is the responsibility of the CEO. The Senate can only make recommendations for investigation and relevant sanctions to follow. Governor, this is the 3rd time we have put it to you that you are carrying along persons responsible for the gravest abuse of financial resources in Murang'a, as evidenced by the report of the Auditor General. You inherited a skunk, and you have decided to carry the skunk, and you are going to bear the stench. So now that we have asked the EACC to carry out a thorough investigation and broaden it out, we expect that if prosecution is recommended on any of the officials, then they must not be allowed to be in office. Of course, Senator Mtata, you will need to refresh our memory on the Justice, was it Ngugi? Was it Justice Ngugi ruling that required persons under investigation to step aside? Whether that has been quashed, whether it has been varied, but the minute the EACC commences investigation, and with these persons who signed these financial statements as the subjects of interest, we do not expect them to be the ones to continue superintending over the financial affairs of Murang'a County Executive. Honorable members, as we had ruled in the very first and second meetings that we had, is that if this 600 million is not supported, initially it was 1.4 billion. It has now reduced to 600 million, which is still a lot of money. Going through the rest of the questions on unsupported expenditure will be academic, because everything else derives from the expenditure that has been reported in the financial statements. Be it compensation of employees, there's a relationship between that and social security benefits. Be it expenditure on development, there's a relationship between that and rehabilitation of civil works. You remember at the last meeting, we asked why 1 billion Kenya shillings was being expensed as other payments. And to date, we still do not have an answer. We still have hundreds of millions that is unsupported. Now, members, we should then take a decision at this point that we agree with the report of the Auditor General, and we take note of the attempt by the executive to support the expenditure, but we also take note that 600 million remains unsupported, and therefore our resolution is for investigations to be done, because there's nothing we can do as a Senate sitting here. We are actually assuming that the 700 million that has been supported, that the records are authentic. That's the assumption we are making, because we don't know whether they're authentic. And so EACC, it's not just about the gap of 600 million. It's also about the authenticity of what has been presented. Are there forgeries? Has there been cooking of records to close the gap? That the Senate cannot do. That can only be done by a specialized agency. So members, in my view, it is not just the 600 million that is unsupported, which you can only conclude, Senator Onyonka, that imeibiwa ama imekulwa.
Hiyo imekuliwa.
So you can only conclude that imekulwa, but there's the other 700 million which could not be supported at the time of audit, could not have been supported at our first meeting, could not have been supported at our second meeting, and is now purportedly supported by the same people who prepared the financial statements, who signed the payment vouchers. Those are the same people we are relying on today to provide evidence of proper expenditure. I think we are wasting the time of the Senate. And Governor, if you had presented to us a fresh team, we would give you the benefit of doubt. And we'll say that Governor Kang'ata is committed to correcting the wrongs of the past. But when you come with us, when you come to us with the same skunks that delivered the adverse report, I am sorry, Dr. Governor Kang'ata, that will not be the best use of the time of the Senate. Before I make a final declaration on how we are proceeding, let's hear from Senator Mtata.
That the EACC should not investigate forever. The EACC exercises the criminal jurisdiction of the EACC is statutory, not constitutional. And being originating from Parliament, and EACC being all commissions being required to report to Parliament, and in this particular case, it's exercising a statutory mandate. It's not a constitutional mandate. Under the Constitution, Article 79 is a code of conduct. The ASECA is where the EACC mainly draws the powers to carry out any criminal investigations. So maybe it will not be interfering with its independence if a progress report was given to this committee. Otherwise, these things go and then they begin being investigated forever. So that's how I would put it. The stepping aside is upon being charged. If the investigation results into an active prosecution, then the officer is supposed to vacate office. But there has to be a charge sheet. Because some investigations can be conducted without you knowing that you are being investigated.
Yeah. Of course, that's the legal, but then there's a moral aspect, which we decided Kenyans, we are not going to be persuaded by moral issues unless things get to court. Senator Fatuma Dula.
Chair, thank you. With the kind of discussion that we are having, and we are not going anywhere, we're just going round in circles. My concern is the officers who have signed the statement are in the office. And I think unless maybe the county wants to protect them, they should be able to respond to these queries. Chair, I think Senator Governor Kang'ata has been a member of this committee, and he knows the requirement of the committee. So I don't see why we are beating the bush. Chair, I am proposing that we send Murang'a County back. Let those officers respond to those queries as required by law and by this committee. Whatever they cannot actually find, let them put in black and white to say that they can't find. Let EACC move in. Whatever has been resolved, let them say it has been resolved. So, Chair, I don't see why we are wasting a lot of time here trying to repeat the same thing over and over again. I thank you.
As I allow the others, I think it's also important of them. And I'll give an example that if you appeared before the professor with a research proposal, there is a way it must be written. You don't write it the way you are taught in your village. You write it in the manner that is prescribed and within the methodologies that are accepted. And that's the same thing for this exercise that we're doing here. So it's not that the professor is proposals we are brought down to earth, not because we are not clever, but because we are not complying with the requirements of research and the particular profession.
Chair,
just one final point I forgot.
Chair, we will request that we put to a vote. Number 2 is that let the entity go back, give them maybe 2 weeks, go and cross-check their responses vis-a-vis what we have here. If anything is missing, they provide us with a table, probably share with the OAG office, tick what is available, and then what is not available, we note. Then if it is a serious issue, Chair, we refer to the EACC and other stakeholders to do follow-up, so that we don't run through documents or answers or responses from management that does not. So, Chair, I think.
First is to thank the committee, Chair. You have really done the people of Murang'a the right thing. The reason being, when we came here, the documents from Murang'a for this year, which is 2020-2021, was 0. Through your interventions and pushing, we are now at 57%, and I agree with you. There's every likelihood maybe money was stolen. There's also every likelihood maybe even what has been provided is not the right thing. So we are in not for you. There's every likelihood even this 57% we are at maybe will not have arrived at, and therefore we want to associate ourselves with the committee. The recommendations, whatever sanctions you will or directions you will issue, we will definitely consider, and we believe we are in not for the good work you have done. most likely would not have reached this level of at least accounting for 57%. And we give you an assurance that we will definitely take that into account. As to your representation concerning the officers who may have done or had this problem of a very negative audit report, we have heard you, and we will definitely take your representation very strongly, probably next time when we come back. But we believe, maybe just to comment, your effort has not been in vain. There has been progress over that period, in particular, at least accounting for 57% of that amount. But I agree, the 600 or so million is not a small change. Even 1 shilling for the public is huge, and we definitely we will comply with your directions. Thank you.
Senator Dulo, why for counties to get 400 billion? And yet you find a few persons within
Point
those
of information,
counties.
Chair.
Senator Matthew?
Point of information, the Senate already passed that yesterday.
Yeah, that was the report.
And in
Then
fact,
there's
Chair,
a bill.
You are recommended for award by the President on the good job you did alongside others. Although we wanted 415, but you came back with 400 billion.
And then 600 million cannot be accounted for. You see, that's a tragedy. That we put up a fight, Senator Kang'ata, you have always put up this fight. Then 600 million cannot be accounted for. Out of that 9 billion, perhaps Murang'a is going to get 400 million. Then you come back 2 years later with the same crooks that you're having, that you cannot justify 600 million. It is sad. It is sad. We cannot say that let the Murang'a people fry themselves. No, this is not Murang'a people money. This is money that has been contributed by the people of Kisii, people of Nyandarua, comes into a pot, we send to Murang'a, then you guys decide to disappear with 600 million. It can't be business as usual. Senator.
Chair, the other issue, Your Excellency, that I wanted to bring your attention, and please look at it as you are going to give us a report on the next session. You know, all the donor funding agencies have said, if you have an adverse opinion, they will not give you money. I hope you understand that. So the reason why you see we are pushing this for our counties to clean up all the messes, whether they are past or current, is because immediately you have an adverse opinion, the donor agencies, you're talking about urban development, you're talking about health, you're talking about industry, you're talking about environment. Imagine Murang'a missing out on close to 2 billion shillings. Those are the issues we are engaged with.
Let me then bring this to a conclusion and again give another example of where Murang'a is losing out. That under the Kenya Informal Settlement Program, we looked at the schedules with the CS Alice, who I think comes from Murang'a by birth, and she was quite embarrassed that Murang'a County did not appear on the schedule of recipients for KISIP 2. My county, Homa Bay, was receiving 1.45 billion Kenya shillings, 1.45 billion under the Kenya Informal Settlement Program. The rest of the counties were getting 300, 400, and so you are missing out on opportunities because you are too soft on the people who are supposed to be providing proper reports on your financial affairs. But just to bring this to a close, at our last meeting, we queried the expensing of 1 billion Kenya shillings as other payments. And we directed that the county executive goes back and breaks it down to the satisfaction of the Auditor General. Today, out of that 1 billion, we still do not have a proper explanation. And globally, there's still 600 million that cannot be explained. Even the 700 million that has been provided to the Auditor General, the Senate sitting here today has no visibility on the authenticity of the records that have been presented to the Auditor General. And I do not think that that verification should squarely lie with the Auditor General. They perhaps should pass it to an investigative agency. What irks this committee is that the officers who are responsible for the mess are still at the scene of crime, and they've still been rewarded with prestigious positions, which gives them an opportunity to continue altering records. If they were genuine, and if they were committed public servants, they ought to have provided evidence of that expenditure, because that expenditure could not have passed without the chief officer finance, the directors of accounting, those persons whom you've continued to retain in your administration knowing. So this committee finds it unfortunate. In fact, we would take a view that you have been captured. There's been county capture in Murang'a. You have been captured by the crooks of the past, and that is why you are unable to do anything about them. And that is why you have carried the excuse that your chief officer is sick, and that's why he cannot come here. We needed that chief officer here. So, Governor Kang'ata, you must break that capture if you're going to succeed. We sense a lack of seriousness on the part of the executive to ensure accountability. Even if this expenditure occurred when Governor Kang'ata was a senator and a member of this committee, as a chief executive officer, you know what your responsibility is. We do not want to reach the conclusion that the current administration is trying to fix the past administration. But the conduct of the executive so far would point to that. It would be easy for someone to imagine. We have been with him around. I have never taken him to be a very vindictive person, unless it is the cartels that have captured him that are pushing him towards that direction. We shall therefore direct the EACC to take a keen interest to confirm the integrity of the 700 million worth of records that have been presented, to investigate how 600 million was reported as having been spent without supporting documentation, to extend the scope and breadth of the investigation beyond the governor and his spouses to the chief officers and to the persons who had constitutional responsibility to maintain custody of records, and to consider investigating and recommending prosecution for the violations of the Public Audit Act, for the violations of the Public Finance Management Act, and for the violations of the procurement law. Indeed, for the violation of the constitutional principles that requires persons with responsibility to manage public funds and resources to conduct themselves in a certain way. So going beyond the money that is alleged to have been stolen, we must also look at what the law requires officers in county governments to uphold and to observe. Under the Public Audit Act, provision of records is a requirement. Non-provision of records is an offense. It is high time someone was taken to court on that account. Because if you look at the quantum here, 1 billion, that is big enough for us to ask for someone to go to court over, guided by what Senator Mtata said, that it cannot be open-ended, it cannot be forever, it cannot be like a snake that goes into hibernation and then wakes up when someone does a political misdeed. It cannot be something that is then used to settle political scores. We'll be having a meeting with EACC in the next 2-3 weeks, and we expect that this is a part of the conversation that we shall be carrying over to the EACC. So, honorable members, in my view, is that the report we are taking back to the House is that we were unable, the county executive was unable to explain expenditure, and we therefore agree with the report of the Auditor General. If there are some areas in your management, in your chairman's brief, where you are saying that supporting documentation has been provided, we shall take note and we shall agree with you. But where it has not been supported, like in the case of the 600 million or the 1 billion other payments, we are taking that resolution to the House that Murang'a could not account for that amount of money, and therefore we have recommended that criminal investigations should follow. I think, members, with that then, in our mind, we are done with this report. This report is a story of theft in Murang'a, and so let EACC and perhaps there could be matters that DCI can also be seized of, but I think EACC should be the lead investigator in this case. For 2021-2022, we stood it down for the reasons that I described earlier, the changes in the reporting templates. So we shall consider 2021-2022 alongside 2022-2023 because they had been prepared in accordance with a new template that had been communicated by the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. Senator Mofaya from Tharaka Nithi, please go on record.
And